Good morning, everybody. This is Mark Sussman, editor of Willamette Week. Delighted to be here with Don Moore, who's the director of the Oregon Zoo, who looks like he's wearing a zoo cap.
Correct.
Don, thanks for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
It looks like you're not at home. You're in your office at the zoo. Is that correct?
Yes, I get a little claustrophobic in my home office. So every once in a while, Metro allows me to come in a couple of times a week and at least go outside and look at my tigers and, see how the zookeepers are doing.
Right. But obviously the zoo is closed.
Yes.
You have laid off, furloughed employees. What's the status of workers at the zoo?
We have laid off over 300 employees. I took a voluntary furlough and other managers are volunteering to furlough as well, and voluntary salary reduction as well.
And obviously, depending on how you measure it, the Oregon Zoo is the most popular and best attended tourist attraction in the state of Oregon. There is no industry that has been harder by this public health crisis than the tourist industry. And I want to talk about that in the future of the zoo, but just let's take a minute and talk about the animals. How are they doing? And I don't mean that in a silly sort of way. Do animals suffer when they don't have enough attention? Is there concern about COVID with them? Just talk a little bit about.
Sure. So three things that our supporters should really know is one is, yes, we laid off over 300 people. We did not lay off any animal care or veterinary staff. So all of our full-time animal care staff and veterinary staff are on board and taking care of animals on a daily basis. We did have to lay off a couple of temporary staff, but anyway, all of our animal care staff is here taking care of the animals, and the animals are healthy and doing fine. In terms of COVID, we're part of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and we're an accredited organization, and our veterinarians and our curators and our keepers constantly talk across the accredited zoos. And so we were in active conversations, of course, with the Bronx Zoo when they discovered that a tiger had COVID. And since they've said that their lions, which are about a half a mile from the tigers at the Bronx Zoo, also had COVID. And so we've taken precaution for all of our animal care staff around all of our mammals, not just primates and elephants and lions and tigers, but bears and bats and everybody else.
You've taken care, what specifically have you done?
We've ensured that our keepers are in PPE. So we have medical level PPE that we had in stock for animal care staff, and we're very careful all the time. Modern veterinary medicine studies zoonotic diseases emerging from wildlife in the wild, and so our vets were on top of it from the very beginning.
You mentioned among the animals, you mentioned bats, and given the strongly held belief that this virus, the coronavirus, jumped from bats, I'm wondering if that's going to be a less popular exhibit moving forward.
Yeah, possibly. I think what the public needs to know is that in modern zoos, we protect the public and our keepers from the bats, with the idea that, maybe the bats are carrying something. They're all healthy. But they're behind glass, right? It's a separate airflow between the bats and the public. So,
given your expertise in animals, would you care to venture into the theory as to whether or not this virus really was just a virus in a bat that jumped species, or whether this emerged from a lab in Wuhan?
Sure. I've worked a lot with animal disease groups in my career, and I've looked at all the science, and I think the vast majority of the science out there and the scientists out there believe that this jumped from a bat, maybe to a pangolin, and then to a human. The wildlife markets around the world are, um, not safe places when they're selling wildlife. The wet markets in China sell everything from vegetables to domestic animals like pigs or pork, but they also trade in wildlife, and often it's illegal. And the wildlife in these deep forest areas, like the fruit bats and other animals, carry diseases that humans have never been exposed to, and that's why this is a novel SARS-like coronavirus. And so I believe it came from the bat, not from the lab.
And if you were a betting man, you would bet that the zoo will open to the public on what date? Do you think you're going to be open in 2020?
We're hoping that we're opening this summer. Yeah,
This summer?
We're hoping,
As in August?
because parks are open, and if you think about it, parks can have one-way trails, and they can request people to physically distance, but we can have timed entry. We control crowds very, very well. We won't have concerts, we won't have camps, we won't have large groups, but we could allow family groups to come through in a physically distancing way and be safe for our employees, for the public, and for our animals. So and that's the plan we're submitting.
So the plan you're submitting would have you opening this summer. It would have, it sounds like you'd restrict the number of people who could be in the zoo at any given time?
Yes, and close all the buildings so that we're an outdoor park like Public Health.
Don, I got to ask you, this is somewhat of a silly question, but during this time when people are stuck at home more often and they're looking for different distractions, I have asked almost everybody I've talked to, and I find a really interesting dividing line on whether they are into, and I've been really excited about asking you more than anybody else, if you watched Tiger King. I want to know your reaction to Tiger King.
I have to admit that because it's viral, I watched Tiger King. I need to point out that we are a proud accredited member of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and Tiger King is not an accredited zoo. And I think some of the things are, well, I stopped at, I think number 5. So I haven't seen the whole thing. I can't watch anymore personally. But I think some of the things that he's done are just horrendous.